I am good. I've started to record the meeting.
Okay. Okay, so we're going to call the meeting to order. First order of business is the approval of the agenda, and I have a motion moved by Bill and seconded by Tom that council suspend the rules of the procedural bylaw to allow delegations to move up in the agenda to follow item number 5, mayor's remarks. And further, that the agenda for the regular council meeting held June 23rd, 2020 be approved as presented. Are there any additions or amendments to the agenda? Does anyone have any discussion on the agenda motion? Is anyone voting no? Hearing no votes, motion is carried. Is there any disclosure of pecuniary interest and general nature thereof of any item on tonight's agenda by any member of council? Seeing none, we'll note that in the minutes. I have a motion moved by Sherry and seconded by Victor that council approve the minutes of the regular council meeting held June the 9th, 2020 as presented. Any discussion? Hearing none. Is there anyone voting no? Hearing no no's, the motion is carried. Mayor's remarks, just a few short remarks, and that is I attended the appreciation Father's Day meal on Sunday at Seed to Sausage, where the Lions Club purchased 30 some meals, or close to 60 meals maybe, for the fire department, the first responders, paramedics, and some of our roads folks as well, who attended to the Parham fire that night. So it was an excellent presentation. The meal was great, and nice to see all of our firefighters out there. Thanks to the Lions Club, they did an excellent job, and it was really appreciated, I think, by all of the volunteers, paramedics, and roads group. We're doing well with COVID-19. Everybody's, I'm sure, up to date with what's happening. Our phase opening seems to be working fairly well. Our office is open here now, and the public is coming in, and things are going well. We've had, I think within the first morning, we only had about 5 or 6 people, but the word's getting out, and it's getting busier. So congratulations to staff for being ready and trying to get back to some degree of normal. It's going to be an interesting long summer, I think. Deputy Mayor, do you have any comments to make? Do we still have Tom on here?
Oh, sorry, I unmuted my mic. No, I have nothing, Your Worship, but I did see on Facebook the coverage of the meals at the fire hall in Parham, and it was excellent, and nice to the Seeds of Sausage and all the group and business people in Charlotte Lake that helped put this on.
Yes, the caremongering group has done, this is the 3rd meal they've been involved in helping with, but yeah, it's been an excellent, it's interesting when tragedy happens, people really pull together in our communities, and it's just amazing to see. It warms your heart. Okay, does anyone have anything to add? If not, we'll move on. Okay, so we are going to move our delegations up, and we have Jeff Simon and Brian Robertson with us, and they're going to do our presentation on the Little Theatre Group. So Brian and Jeff, take it away.
Mayor Smith, thank you for receiving us. Hello, councilors, clerical department staff. My name is Brian Robertson, and I'm here with my colleague, Jeff Simon. We're of the North Frontenac Little Theatre, and we have a proposal. Can everyone hear me okay?
Yes. Yes, Brian, you're coming through loud and clear.
Great. I emailed Kathy the proposal that we have in mind for today's meeting, and hopefully some of you may have had the time to go through it. We had, for a bit of background, we had approached you back in November with the dilemma of realizing that we weren't able to carry on operations in the Granite Ridge Education Center. And part of it was because of user fees, which just were overwhelming our small budget. So we came to you, and we were hoping to, and we were trying to feel out council's, if you will, on us moving into Ozo Hall on a permanent basis. So this proposal circles around that notion of North Frontenac Little Theatre adopting a new home, and that being the Ozo Hall. So in going through this proposal, the second chapter on page 2, I don't know if Cindy is there. So we, as rationale for this move, we figure that we could act of help to the organization and running of the Ozo Hall, and we wanted to put forward the fact that we weren't going to be freeloaders in the building, but that we had some idea of helping out and putting on children's theater and making some alterations that would include installing our theater lights and, doing things, on our own will that would help the hall and, help provide a longevity of this, of the whole community hall. So moving on to the scope of what our presence would actually look like. Well, I mentioned that if we were to move into the hall on a permanent basis, it would be wonderful for us to install our theater lights. And the theater lights would really, I think, help bring alive a lot of performances, not just North Frontenac Little Theaters. As well as theater lights, we're keen on, implementing a new sound system that might be of benefit to all users of the hall. We would also need a small storage area if we were there, let's say a locker size area, 4 feet by 6 perhaps, just to stash some of our valuables, including the light board and some of our items we use during a production. We'd be putting on a couple of plays a year and maybe summer theater. The rehearsal time surrounding those plays would vary, but usually it's a couple of months for the smaller plays, maybe 3 to 4 months for the large ones, with a couple of rehearsals during the week and maybe the odd weekend rehearsal. And they culminate in performance weeks where we would need the entire week to have dress rehearsals and make preparations for the final performance. At any time during, that sort of schedule, we would be more than willing to drop a rehearsal or change a date if there was another group that needed the hall. So we would be really flexible in that respect. During the performance week, I've noted too that we would probably mount the set, which would include some background flats and maybe some stage furniture. So that would be towards the end of the rehearsal period. And during the performance week, the actors would congregate in the large kitchen and have that as an entrance and exit to gathering point. So that's what it would look like in general if we were to move in. Implementation plan. So we don't want to be overwhelming or anything. So we were thinking of slowly but surely trying to try out a few things. And since you're redoing the ceiling, we thought we might be able to install the lights and get the theater lights up and running. We wouldn't really need to install the board right away. We could put a hold on that. We do have a mobile lighting system that we used when we put a play on there about 5 years ago. And that play, there's a little picture of it, was a great success. And it proved to us that the hall was a real nice venue to mount a play such as those Norm Foster comedies that we did back then. So as far as the implementation process goes, there's lights, and then, we finalize the storage area, and then we'd look to the spring of 2021 to mount a play, and we'd go through the production process, and it would be sort of a test run. How is this working out? And are we stepping on anyone's toes? And we were hoping we could get a liaison from council to sit in on a debriefing after the performance week and work out any glitches. And then further to that, we could carry on with improvements that we had been thinking about with the stage or with the sound system, or with training people to use the theater lights. Down to chapter 5, proposed responsibilities of the North Frontenac Little Theatre in this scenario. Well, we would certainly pledge to abide by the Ozo Hall rental agreement regulations as laid out by the township and fine-tuned for NFLT. We would have the either director or the stage manager of each production to be first in and first out of the hall. So we would be very careful in monitoring ourselves, our actors, and cleaning up appropriately. We'd leave the hall as we found it. We'd secure the building appropriately. Further to that, I had mentioned we'd be very flexible in changing times, changing dates, dropping a rehearsal if we need to. But when performance week comes, we would have to sort of hang on to those special evenings and the Sunday matinee times. And often we take a Monday to do a final cleanup and make sure that everything is back to its original state. We would also provide a technician to operate the lights for other community events, and when possible, and also train individuals when possible to operate the lights. And because the lights are expensive, we would want only trained personnel to be exposed to them. We'd really look forward to enhancing the performances and maybe doing some fundraising and getting the hall spruced up any way that is required. Excuse me. And so once again, we don't want to be freeloaders. We want to do our bit to make the hall into the best possible, performing venue we can. In terms of the light installation, I want to turn this over to Jeff Simon right now, and he'll give you the general scenario of what that would entail. Jeff, are you there?
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can, Jeff. Go ahead.
Okay, well, you'll see that we've included a diagram that we've worked out in sort of walking through with the building inspector and whatnot, and to see what we'd have to do, since they'll be doing a ceiling this summer. So in that case, we would need to at least install the light bars and rough in lighting our circuits. We wouldn't have to hook anything up, but if they're going to drywall the ceiling, we need to put in all the wires. Basically, what we've planned, what we need is two 60-amp circuits for our main lighting circuits, and then two 20 amps for auxiliary lights. And as you can see, it indicates there's a lot of plugins that we have planned, but in actual fact, we only use 32 lights maximum. Rarely would we ever use all the lights. In terms of the electrical requirements, although each 12 lights require 60 amp circuits, at GREC, we never used all lights, and then we never used our lights above about 75% capacity. In the OSO hall, it's smaller space. We would probably only run the lights 40 to 50 or 60% capacity. And then that would only be during some of the rehearsals and the final week. So I suppose our concern or our idea is that we'd need to do the installation and before the ceiling was done, and we would pay for all the materials that were required, plus offer labor whenever, if that's appropriate. We'd be happy to do all the work under supervision, of course. We'd use a licensed electrician to supervise final hookup and the laying of the wires. Again, that would be at our expense. So this is our tentative plan, and it can be certainly adapted or changed if there's any need to do that. As Brian says, we're totally flexible. We want this to work, and we want it to be a venue that all groups would be able to use, and depending on what their requirements were.
Okay, thanks, Jeff. And finally, Council, Chapter 6, the proposed responsibilities of the Township of Central Frontenac. So what falls on you is the question. So in looking at Chapter 6, I'll go through this list quickly. Consider allowing the NFLT rehearsal and performance time at the Ozo Hall with charges waived. That would be the ideal scenario. Allow agreed upon storage of NFLT supplies. And that's that storage locker idea that we've mentioned. Allow NFLT the usage of areas of the hall that have been agreed upon for our performances, including the stage and some rooms off the stage and the kitchen. Consider acknowledging NFLT as a member of the Central Frontenac Recreation Committee and afford it all responsibilities and privileges as such. Help address issues that may arise in the course of our presence at the hall, and maybe through a council liaison with an NFLT spokesperson. They could participate in debriefing sessions. And finally, examine the light plot that we've just gone through, Jeff has just gone through, and consider approving or implementing of it and installing those theater lights. In conclusion, we're really sort of worried about the little theater. We've been around for 40 years. We've had a lot of fun. We've got a lot of community involvement on the stage and in the audience throughout the years. But we are in a very difficult time. And I fear without the support of council and us being able to do something like move into the Ozo Hall, we might, collapse as a theater, which would be a true pity for everyone. So we're just asking that you consider this proposal and hopefully, you know, agree to some of the wishes that we have. Thank you for your time, and I'll sign off at this point.
Okay, just don't go too far in case we have some questions. Now,
Sure.
we
Okay.
do have a motion that was in your package that was pretty blank, and Kathy has put together some possible suggestions for us to discuss. So I have it moved by Bill and seconded by Brent, that council receives a presentation from Brian Robertson and Jeff Simon on behalf of the North Frontenac Little Theater, and further that council grant. Okay, somebody, we need to mute. There's a background noise. Okay. Everyone can hear? Okay, and further that council grant the Little Theater the use of the Soldiers Memorial Hall as their permanent quarters to house their productions, which occurs twice a year, one in the fall and one in the spring, along with the scheduled rehearsals required anywhere from 6 to 12 weeks, depending on the production. Number 2, permission that the fees for the hall be waived in place of providing a grant to help cover the costs. Number 3, to permanently install their professional theater lights in the ceiling, provided they work with the manager of development services / CBO prior to the proposed addition or work for the hall. And number 4, that the usage of the the use of the rooms off the stage to house their equipment be utilized. The one thing that we want folks to be aware of is that court is the 3rd Monday of every month. So takedown would have to avoid those Mondays. Okay, discussion.
Fran, I have another sort of thought on it as well, is that also too, is that because of the courts, but that if council wishes to add this on as well, is that the North Frontenac Little Theater provide the dates of the productions along with the rehearsal schedule to the office. So that way then we know exactly when, because of other users maybe wanting to use the hall.
Yes, that would have to happen. Okay, discussion on that. Hearing no discussion.
Madam,
Tom here, Your Worship. I fully support this. I think the Frontenac Little Theater is very important to our community, and they've done a great job over the years. And I think it's important that we support them in this endeavor. And I'm sure that they'll be working. They will work with staff. From the presentation I saw here, listen to Brian and Jeffrey. I have no problem with it, and I fully support it.
The one thing I would add is that we didn't suggest in the motion that they become part of the rec committee at this point, because once you're part of the rec committee, all of the finances have to come through the township, and that creates more work for us. It also would be the liability insurance, and our insurer would like us to avoid as much risk as possible. So taking on another group just creates more risk for the township. So if this works for everyone, at this point, I think we would prefer that they not be part of the rec committee, but that can be revisited after a year.
Madam Mayor, Bill.
it's Brent. Sorry, you go ahead, Bill.
Bill and then Brent. Bill, you're on mute.
Am I on mute now or not?
No, go ahead.
You can hear me. I wasn't sure where I was at there. I just want to state that I'm in favor of this proposal. I had a couple of questions, but I think they're probably engineering questions in regard to what, if any, structural changes have to happen in the hall to be able to install the lights, and that can be answered later on by a future report. I'm just wondering, setting a precedent in one person using the hall all the time, free of charge, I'm wondering if that would create any issues where the little theater, if they happen to become very profitable, might want to make outside of the contribution they're making in regard to assets to the hall. If after a year or so or a couple of years they're in very good financial situation, that they might make a contribution against the electricity or the heating costs that might be incurred at the hall. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
I think that's always something we can do when we sit down and have the debrief at the end of the first year. Brian, do you agree that that could be covered after the first year of operation?
Absolutely. And I hear what Bill is saying, and I'm sure if we started turning a profit, yes, we would come up with an arrangement to definitely put money back into the hall. Our group has talked about that.
Okay, and Brent?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Very supportive of this. I think this is a great fit. And it's a good thing that we're talking now before we get into any substantive changes to OSO Hall, so we can do this right from the start. My concerns would be obviously dealing with the court. They need the judge, I believe, uses dedicated office space, so I don't know if there's an issue, but I assume that there's an opportunity to just make sure all of those things are taken care of if and when a situation comes up. I will editorialize and say that I don't think it would be in the best interest of the theater group to seek a formal relationship with us in terms of the rec committee. In doing so, you would end up being under the governance of the township. Committees of the township do tend to be run by the township. And I think that the Little Theater Board of Directors would want to have as much latitude in running their productions and dealing with fundraising. I'm sure that there's a mechanism that we can come up with where we can partner, but I would strongly encourage the Little Theater Company not to want to have a formalized structure. I think it would remove a lot of their independence.
Okay, also,
Madam Mayor, I can certainly mention to council as well, in speaking with Andy, to deal with the work in the hall and with this summer, he has quotations out now. He's advertised them. They are to close around July the 17th. So that would really help in the sense of, starting the work, because the court is not using the hall presently and it doesn't have any dates in August anyway. So he thought that would be a great time to do the installation for the lights as well at the same time. The other comment that he mentioned to me was in regards to the AMP service, that he certainly would need an electrician to look at to make sure those needs are covered as well.
okay. And I think the group mentioned an electrician would be on the job as well.
Your Worship, it's Tom here. I have one more comment I wanted to make. I would, with regards to the council liaison, I think we still require somebody from the council as the liaison rep, similar to what we have with the farmers market, be a representative on that with the Frontenac Little Theater.
Okay, do we have any volunteers? We could ask Sherry to do that. Sherry, what do you think?
She's muted.
Okay.
Can you hear me okay?
We can sort that out later.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can, Sherry.
Okay. Yes, I'd be happy to be the liaison for Little Theater.
Okay. I think we can maybe add that to our motion then, that Sherry be appointed the liaison. Is Bill and Brent okay with me adding that?
Brent here. I'm perfectly okay with that.
Okay, Bill?
You hear me?
No.
I'm okay with that.
Okay, all right, that's been added, that Sherry be appointed liaison. Okay, very good discussion. I'm going to call the vote. Is there anyone voting no? Hearing none, the motion is carried unanimously. So we've got work to do, folks. Brian and Jeff, you can be in touch with Kathy and get started with whatever you need to do from there.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, everyone.
You're welcome. Okay, all right, let's move on. Are there any deferred items, Kathy?
No, there's not.
Okay, so we are at Public Works. I have a motion moved by Elwin and seconded by Nikki. Whereas the amount of single-use plastics leaking into our lakes, rivers, and waterways is a growing area of public concern, whereas reducing the waste we generate and reincorporating valuable resources from our waste stream into new goods can reduce greenhouse gases significantly. Whereas the transition to full producer responsibility for packaging, paper, and paper products is critical to reducing waste, improving recycling, and driving better economic and environmental outcomes. Whereas the Township of Central Frontenac supports the transition of the Blue Box program to full producer responsibility in principle and sees the value of a regional approach. And whereas the Association of Municipalities of Ontario has requested municipal governments with Blue Box programs provide an indication of the best date to transition Central Frontenac's program to full producer responsibility. Therefore, be it resolved that Council accept the recommendation for Central Frontenac to transition its Blue Box program to full producer responsibility January 1st, 2023, and that Council authorize the Public Works Manager to allocate time to further research the services the municipality would like to offer to producers should we be able to arrive at a mutual agreement. And further, that the resolution be forwarded to the Association of Municipalities of Ontario and the Ontario Ministry of the Environment, Conservation and Parks. Discussion? Tyson, maybe you'd like to speak to this?
Through you, Madam Mayor, I don't have much else to really discuss. I can field questions, but I've laid it out. I had a pretty, sorry about the wordy report, but I think I've laid it out pretty well. But if anybody has any questions, go ahead.
Okay, Bill?
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can.
Okay, I have a couple of questions on this. I would assume from the wordage that's in front of me here is we're only talking about packaging paper and paper products. And in our Blue Box, we're putting in cans and plastics, a lot of material that we also recycle. And I have a hard time understanding how this full producer responsibility is actually going to work. We still collect the recyclables. What will we do with them, and how would we be compensated for doing this? And the background here is I find it very difficult to understand how producer responsibility is actually going to work. Thank you, Madam Mayor. I look forward to the explanation.
Through you, Madam Mayor, Bill, to answer your question, a lot of us public works managers still feel the same way, and right up to the day before the report, we were all meeting and saying, how is this going to be modeled? And there's still a lot of unanswered questions. But I'm not letting our decision to give them a date hinge on that. There's a lot of options, and a lot of it's hearsay, and people are saying that producers will come right to our site with at their cost, pick up all of our collected materials and take it away. So then all we would be saving is trucking to Kingston. There's like people are saying that in areas like South Frontenac that they would be that like a township with collection would continue on with their collection and be subcontracted by the producer. There's services that we can offer, such as collection someday down the road if we could afford it, but they would subcontract us out. So there's how it's modeled is very unclear still, and but this decision that we're putting forward is us in Central Frontenac. I'm saying that we'd be excited for producers to take any of the responsibility. So, and we want to do it as soon as possible. We're not set up to do full collection right now. We won't be for a long time. But, and don't think I'm saying we're going to start doing collection anytime soon because of this. But yeah, it's tricky to figure out exactly how it's going to be modeled, and there's going to be lots of meetings and I'm sure webinars because of COVID-19. But between now and then, but what we want to say is that yes, we do want producers to help out with this, and to keep it really simple. I'll say this before anybody else asks any more questions because it might help out. Think of it like a stewardship. And think of the success we've had with our other stewardships, tires getting picked up, propane getting picked up. That's all stuff we used to have to truck, we used to have to deal with, or it ended up in our ditches. This is just, it's a little more confusing and there's a lot more to wrap our heads around, but it's just a stewardship. And based off the success of our other stewardships we've been in part of, I think we should move right away.
I look forward to further information, Madam Mayor.
Excellent. The one question that I would have is Dennis Doyle was at a seminar and was told that producers didn't want to pick up in municipalities with a size of under 5,000 population. And there was something like 134 of us across Ontario. I mentioned it to Tyson and he's looking at the issue.
Yes, and I can expand on that a little bit. I've been in contact with our townships, and like I've said before, depending on how that's modeled, we may be pairing up with other municipalities to get ourselves up over that 5,000, and that could easily change too, because that didn't sound like it was set in stone. That number of 5,000 was just thrown around. So this is a tough report to do because of the lack of info we've received, but in communication with the other public works managers and the AMO is that we shouldn't let these decisions, we're not locking into anything. We're not locking into these dates. We're telling the AMO that this is the date we'd like producers to start helping us out. And I don't think we should miss an opportunity.
Excellent. Any other questions or comments?
I support it, but
Sorry.
I'd be interested. I'm sorry, Brent. I know I fully support this, but I'd be interested in the logistics of how you're going to handle this with the different products that are coming into the dump and sorting them all out to various manufacturers. So I'll wait for this, further development on this.
Okay, Brent?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I share everybody's concern about the lack of detail. It occurs to me, though, that producers number in the thousands. Everybody who produces a product is a producer, and they're not all going to run their own individual pickup schemes. So I think the logic would dictate that there's going to be some probably budgeting. I would see a situation maybe like the stewardship where ourselves in lieu of having every person that produces packaging and for the Ontario market coming in with a pickup truck. So I think that we can make a safe assumption that that's the route that they're going to go.
That's right, Brent. And like I said, in financial implications, the goal is that producers are 100% responsible and they cover all the costs, whether we are subcontracted to continue to help them or whether they find their own. But you're 100% right in saying that there could be costs to making the switch, and that's what's unknown yet. And I'll just make everybody give them the warm and fuzzies before we leave, is that reminding everyone that we're not locking into dates and that we're not locking into costs, and we can continue on the way we go, the way we're going right now. But everybody else is on board, and especially us who don't do collection are excited to see the producers help out.
Madam Mayor, back a follow-up question. That producer continue, or would that include things like roof shingles? Tyson, thank you.
Currently, roof shingles are not recyclable. They go into our landfill. So at this time, no. But every year there's another stewardship that comes up, so maybe someday they would be.
Okay, thank you.
I guess the big thing is this is a moving target, and it sounds like Tyson's got his eye on the ball, and we'll probably have many reports yet before this comes to fruition. They've been talking about this for 20 years, so whether or not it'll happen by 2023, let's hope, but time will tell. Okay, is there any other discussion?
No, just like to thank everybody, and if I'm not needed, I'll probably sign off. I have an appointment tonight, so thank you.
Okay, we do have the Henderson Road one next.
Oh, yes.
Okay, but we'll get through that quickly.
I just wanted to, I know how fast we moved along, so I just wanted to say at the end of mine and the Henderson Roads, I'll slip out.
Okay, that's fine.
Thank you.
Okay, is there anyone voting no to this motion? Hearing none, the motion's carried. Okay. Now I have a motion moved by Tom and seconded by Cindy. Whereas tender PW 2020-03 was released on June the 12th, 2020 and closed on June 23rd, 2020 for the reconstruction of Henderson, Arden, and Oak Flats Road as described in the document. And whereas the Public Works Manager is in the process of reviewing the bids to evaluate according to the criteria outlined in the tender and will be recommending the candidate for selection of the successful contractor at the meeting. Now therefore be it resolved, just one moment. Be it resolved that council award Gemmell Sand and Gravel as the successful bidder in the amount of $615,732.03 before HST. And further that the Public Works Manager be authorized to issue a purchase work order. Discussion.
Through you, Madam Mayor, to Tyson, how many quotes did we actually get for these projects?
Only, through you, Madam Mayor, only 2 were received, Bill.
Okay.
Because I never got
Yeah.
those. Who was the other? No, the other one. Oh, who was the other one?
It was Gemmell Sand and Gravel, and it was Crane's Construction. And I'm guessing one of the reasons why we didn't receive a lot, I'm glad they were both local, and this is where we always want locals to bid on it. I'm thinking the reason it was fairly short timeline for bidding that I had to meet to get the surface treatment down in time, because following this project, hopefully the week of September 1st is when we're going to do the surface treatment on those sections of road. So I couldn't have the bid open too long, but we've got good prices, and I'm excited to go forward.
Very good.
Any other questions or comments? Okay, hearing none. Is there anyone voting no? Motion's carried.
Madam Mayor, Bill here. Just
Yes.
before Tyson leaves, I'm really quite impressed by the progress of the project that's going on in the village of Sharbert Lake. I just think it's moving quite quickly, and I'm quite happy about it. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm impressed with the local contractors as well. We've been dealing with some things as they go. There's a few little blips from moving the project up 5 months. There's some last minute stuff that has to be done, but it's everything's moving along. Everything's on schedule.
You're doing a great job.
Thank you.
Okay,
Good job.
let's move on to fire and emergency services. Okay, I have a motion moved by Bill and seconded by Cindy. The council received for information the CFFR activity report for May 2020. Any discussion or questions on that for Jamie?
Madam Mayor, Bill here. I was just to Jamie. I'm just wondering, I see quite a lot of vehicle accidents, and I'm just wondering how many of those are happening on Highway 7, so where we, in actual fact, might recoup some of the cost of attending those accidents.
Through you, Madam Mayor, to Councillor McDonald. To date, Bill, we've only had 4 calls on Highway 7 that we can reclaim for.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions or comments?
Madam Mayor, it's Brent.
Go ahead, Brent.
Since this is the first time since the incident in Parham that Jamie's been in the virtual room with us, I just wanted to express my own personal appreciation to him and all of his crew for everything that they did, and is so much appreciated. And just wanted to, not really a question, just wanted to say face to face to you, Jamie, thank you. Thank everybody on.
Thanks, Councillor Cameron, and thanks to all the councillors that have reached out to myself and to all the firefighters. The support throughout the community has been great. You know, a special thank you to, we can't forget our mutual aid partners from South Frontenac Fire and Rescue and Kingston Fire and Rescue that were there that night as well. So, you know, we appreciate all the support that we've received since the fire.
Excellent. Okay, any other? Oh, somebody's maybe mute again, Bill and Jamie. Okay, is anyone voting no to the motion? Hearing none, motion's carried. Okay, I have a motion moved by Elwin and seconded by Tom. That council support the recommendation of the acting manager of emergency services / fire chief to amend the open air burn bylaw. Discussion?
Yes, Madam Mayor.
Sorry, I just have,
Victor?
Yeah, okay, so I have a point 22, the permit section. Every person must.
Victor, you're breaking up.
You guys are breaking up when.
Okay.
Through you, Madam Mayor, I think I understand what Victor was asking.
Okay.
On point 22, Councillor Heath, that point is for the fires of the yard and brush fires, because the permit is over, will be over a 5, or the permit will be over a 5-day period. We're asking them to call in each time they burn during that 5-day period so that we know the date and in the evening that they're burning. Campfires and incinerators will not be required to call in to notify us.
Okay, I can hear you now. Should that not be in the bylaw?
It's written on the permit, I believe.
Yes, it will be on the permits as well.
Okay.
And yeah.
It wouldn't hurt to say it there.
No, it wouldn't, and we'll make that amendment.
Okay, do you have another one, Victor?
I have 3 actually.
Okay.
The second one is about Chinese lanterns. I thought that we were going to specifically ban them in the bylaw. Did you hear that?
Yes, yeah, we did. Jamie's just having a look at the bylaw.
Just because it was in there.
What section is that, Victor?
No.
If I may, I think that was in the fireworks bylaw, not in the burn bylaw.
Okay. Yeah.
Correct.
Right.
Yes, sorry, my fault. Yes, that was in the fireworks bylaw.
Okay, so ignore that. Third question was about offering permits through the internet. we had to change our bylaw to allow internet purchase of permits. I don't see it in the bylaw.
Through you, Madam Mayor, the wording for that is generic, Councillor Heath, so that we can continue not only with moving forward to slowly implement the online portion, but also carry on with the manual forms as well until such time that we roll out the program of moving to totally online.
And I think the former resolution said, I think for a period of 6 months, was it not, Jamie?
Yes, it was for a period of 6 months, and we'll use that 6 months to make sure that we get the communication out and residents are familiar with how to use the new system. And the option of coming into the office will always be there, even if you know, a year from now, if they still need help, they can come into the office and we can help them generate a permit through the online system.
But I think Victor's question is, should it not be in this bylaw as well?
It was listed, I'm just going through, it was listed under definitions. A permit system means any system the municipality wishes to use, either manual or electronic, or a combination of both in order to manage compliance with the bylaw.
Okay, so it is in there, Victor.
And I think after the 6 months, once we do that and advertise, we'd come back to council to let them know. And at that point, then Jamie may want to go strictly, you know, online system.
Right. Victor, does that answer all your questions, Victor?
Yes, I'm satisfied.
Okay. Tom, did you have something?
Yes, I do. A question for Jamie. I'm just curious, Jamie, under item 12, and I just want to understand the rationale behind this. You're saying here for open air burning, you have be 2 hours before sunset, lasting until 2 hours after sunrise. Like, I just don't understand the rationale on that. If you're going to have a brush fire, usually you want to start it early in the afternoon so you're finished by sundown. But I don't understand that. What's the rationale behind that?
So through you, Madam Mayor, the rationale, it's wording that we've I guess borrowed from the Ministry of Natural Resources and Forestry and their legal terminology as far as the regulations under the Forest Fire Prevention Act. So they've always used the 2 hours before and 2 hours after.
Okay, but from a practical, it doesn't make sense.
Well, I've asked that question over the years, and what I was told is that as it gets dark, you can see if there's any sparks left. And if it's a big brush pile, it could burn all night. And you want to make sure in the dark if there's any embers that you can see.
Right.
Your worship,
Yes.
what we've always told residents coming in is that the volunteer firefighters, most of them are working during the day and are not available to fight fires if something did happen during the day.
This time, and I also want to remind, because this is talking about this during the season when they do not have to come in for a burn permit. So you're not going to know, because we're not regulated that they have to have a permit. So they can burn from November the 1st to March the 31st. I think we have to be very cautious, because I know that we're talking about the idea of before sunset and sunrise, but how can we legally, we would be able to charge them? That's my thoughts, is how would you legally charge them when under the bylaw, they do not need a permit during that period of time? We may get questioned on that.
Can I'm not 100% sure, but I believe when I was doing some research in this, that requirement is in the Forest Fire Prevention Act, and it's a provincial requirement. So I don't think we have any choice about it anyway, but I will double check that.
That's good, Cindy, because it always has been that most people, when we didn't have burn permits, they do burn other times during the day, but it's good to double check that. It's always been that they don't need a permit, so people were able to go ahead and they just burn whenever.
Mhm.
But would it not make sense that I put a notwithstanding clause in there after October 31st to the March 31st that this doesn't apply because it doesn't make any sense? Because now you've got snow and cold weather. It doesn't make sense to have that in there. From that
I
period
think
after October 31st.
I think it's to through you, Madam Mayor. I think it's for consistency so that we're consistent year round and not just certain periods, so that there's no confusion.
I think you're right.
Okay.
Okay, so Cindy's going to recheck with the wording, whether or not it's there because of the province. And, but we can go ahead, make amendments later if we need to.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay. Okay, any other questions or comments on the motion? Hearing none, is there anyone voting no to the resolution? Motion's carried. Okay. Now, we have a motion. Glasses on. Okay, moved by Sherry and seconded by Brent, whereas RFP number 421 was released on April the 17th, 2020, and closed on May 29th, 2020, with 5 bids being received for the purchase of a new pumper. And whereas the acting manager of emergency services / fire chief has reviewed the bids and evaluated them according to the criteria outlined in the tender document, and is recommending that Battleship Industries Limited be accepted as the successful bidder. Now therefore be it resolved that council award Battle Shield Industries Limited as the successful bidder in the amount of $434,309.28 plus HST, and authorize the acting manager of emergency services / fire chief to issue a purchase order for the new pumper. Discussions. They don't come cheap.
Madam Mayor, Bill here.
Go ahead, Bill. You're muted.
Good now.
That's good, yeah.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, yes.
What are the time frames on delivery, Jamie? Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Through you, Madam Mayor, the time frame for delivery through Battle Shield is actually with 10 to 12 months. Just a little history. Battle Shield Industry is an Ontario company just outside of Ottawa, and they just expanded. Their operation. They have 2 manufacturing facilities now, so they've been able to double their build. So it's 10 to 12 months for delivery.
Okay, any other questions? Okay, hearing none. Is there anyone voting no? Motion's carried. Okay. Next, we have a motion moved by Elwin and seconded by Cindy that council received the Township of Central Frontenac COVID-19 recovery framework prepared by the acting manager of emergency services fire chief for information. Any discussion on this document? Looks good, pretty thorough. Okay, anyone voting no? Hearing none, motion's carried. Okay, I think that's it for fire and emergency, Jamie.
That's it for fire and emergency. I'm going to check out as well. I have to run home, but before I leave, I just wanted to let council know that fire got hooked up this week with the card lock system for the fuel. Ran some tests, and we were going to roll it out this evening, but because of the hot weather, we canceled training tonight. So hopefully throughout the week and next week, we'll be able to roll it out and get everybody trained on using the new system. And just wanted to make sure I pass that on.
Excellent. We've been waiting for that one.
We have been. I was hoping that Tyson wouldn't steal my thunder.
Okay, thank you, Jamie.
All right. Thank you, everyone.
Okay, good night. Okay, we have a motion moved by Victor and seconded by Brent that council approve the check distribution reports totaling $474,283.64 as prepared by the treasurer. Any discussion? Is there anyone voting no to paying the bills? Motion's carried. Okay. I have a motion moved by Sherry and seconded by Victor that council approve the following apportionments of assessment as recommended by Impact for 2020 as applicable for the following roll numbers. And there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 or 6 there that was in your package. Any discussion or questions? Hearing none. Anyone voting no? Motion's carried. A motion moved by Bill and seconded by Tom that council accept the arrears/tax sale property summary update report as prepared by the treasurer for information purposes and further support the treasurer's recommendation to not proceed with the normal tax sale process on new properties in 2020, but resume the normal tax sale process in 2021. Any discussion on this one? Any questions?
Your worship, if I can add a couple of pieces of information there.
Yes, go ahead.
So obviously what's in the report is that we haven't changed a whole lot from the previous year, but also as mentioned, we would not be able to proceed with tax sales until September sometime at the earliest. Waiting until next year, we normally send them May 1st. That would give me a whole year to work with everybody who, whether they are or are not, have a job loss in this situation. And I just think that's being fair to the residents.
I think that's the right thing to do.
I agree.
Bill, are you saying something?
I'm trying to.
Okay.
Can you hear me?
Now I can.
Actually, when I was looking at the statistics, when you think in the situation we're in across the country, the numbers have not changed dramatically over the last year or so. So I'm really quite impressed with the numbers where we're at. I just wanted to make that comment. Thank you.
Yeah, we may see the real effect of COVID next year.
Through your worship, Councilor. Sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say thanks, Bill, for that comment. I very much appreciate that. We did have a bunch of people that maybe didn't follow through on their payment arrangements, so that's why they've moved over to the would have been sent category.
Right. Okay, any further discussion? Is there anyone voting no? Hearing none, the motion's carried.
Your worship, may I mention a couple other things, please?
Sure, yes.
Okay, so in a previous building report, when council approved for the old Parham Fire Hall roof to be put metal on, it was incorrect in there. The budgeted amount said 21,000. It was actually 10,000. We had reduced it because I think we were going to go with shingles at the time. I think metal is the right answer in my personal opinion, but just to let council know about that piece of information. We also just added Paymentus credit card provider, and we've received $13,000 since June 10th. So we've had to call numerous people back so now you can pay your property tax through credit card, Paymentus. That is a 2.5% fee. You can also pay your dog tag, your building permit, and we're hoping to get it hooked up with RBC at some point, but we're still working on that. So that's good news. And the other thing I wanted to thank council for approving in the budget, the mailing machine. I think I called it a folding machine in there. That saved staff half the time, if not 3/4 of the time, in stuffing the tax bills. And that's still with going through them manually to pull out people who had 3 or multiple properties ultimately. So it's a huge time saver. We can get back to doing our jobs a little bit better, quicker. So thank you.
Time is money.
Yeah.
Any questions or comments? Okay, good stuff, Michael.
Thank you. Have a
Okay,
good night.
you too. Moved by Sherry and seconded by Bill. Whereas the County of Frontenac passed Resolution 2020-22 on February 19th, 2020, that it requests a conveyance of the former KMP rail line lands, which land is now used as a recreational trail. And whereas the township passed Resolution 312-2019 to authorize entering into a funding agreement for the joint grant application made by the county and the township to the Ontario Ministry of Agriculture, Food and Rural Affairs, Rural Economic Development Programs, brackets RED, for trail enhancements for the improvement of the trail north of Charlotte Lake to the North Frontenac boundary. And whereas the county is taking the lead on the construction and subsequent maintenance of the trail to extend the KMP Trail network, now therefore be it resolved that council agree in principle to the transfer of the KMP Trail lands to the county, either by way of conveyance, lease, or license, subject to any legal advice so obtained. And further, that transfer of the trail property to the county be exempted from the sale of and other disposition of property policy, but that notice of the transfer to the county be published in the same manner as in the said policy, and that the clerk bring back a bylaw to council once final arrangements have been negotiated. Discussion? Bill, are you talking? Push your button. There we go.
There you go. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Every time I touch this button, it's something else happens today. I'm in agreement with this, but I want to be on record as having said that when the county takes over, there's a recognition of the folks that who are using this trail to access their property. And in situations where the trail goes through the middle of people's property, and they may have to access that trail in which to use their own property, that be recognized, because in some situations, I'll give you an example of Shirley Crawford. The KNP trail goes right through the middle of her property, and she has probably a half a mile of the trail on her property or dividing her property. There are people who are using this as access to their cottage property south of Highway 7. So I'm in favor of this, but I want to see the final agreement that recognizes prior use of the trail as it exists today. I just want to be on record as having said that in this meeting. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Yes, and that has been taken into account. And I think that's why you will see, while you saw in this motion, that by way of conveyance of lease or license, so that in fact we can still maintain the ownership and some control and lease it out to the county or license it to the county.
That's correct. Yeah, that's correct. I think that when Cindy did the wording of this, we had the discussion. So it's in principle at this point till we still do the negotiations with some of those property owners. And certainly our comments and our meeting with Kelly and Richard were that about those recognition of those people, as Councilor McDonald mentioned, and those definitely will be taken into account.
Through you, Madam Mayor, that was my concern as well.
Excellent.
Sure,
Okay.
all of that.
For sure. Okay. Any other questions or comments? Hearing none, is there anyone voting no? Motion's carried. Okay. I have a motion moved by Cindy and seconded by Brent. That council approve in principle the recommendation of the CAO/clerk to close that part of Oak Avenue adjacent to Lot 3 and 1113 Township of Olden, being PIN 36223-0254 as applied for by Stewart and Brigada Harris, and that we proceed to a public meeting to close the said road allowance before passing said bylaw. Any discussion? Questions?
Question. It's me.
Go ahead, Tom.
Okay. I just had a quick question, Cindy. Block A, as I understand it, there's no buildable area on that. I know it's a township lot, but there's no area on that lot that you could put a building? Am I right in saying that?
Through you, Madam Mayor, it's tricky. I think I went with Crystal for the site visit on this one, and we took a look at it. I mean, it would be extremely difficult to build on it. She didn't think it was completely impossible. And I think potentially if you added the unopened road allowance, if you closed that off and added it to Block A, you might be able to get a buildable lot, but it would require some severe rock removal, I think, to put anything in there. But I wouldn't discount it completely as not developable.
And the other part of that question was the Oak Avenue behind Block A, as I understand it, kind of, and you've been out there, that road cannot be, the lots to the east of it or whatever to the beyond it cannot be accessed by that Oak Avenue. You have to go through the other part there where you come in off of Maple Road. Is that correct? Go from Oak Avenue straight through because of that topography in there. Is that right?
Yes, I don't know. I should have put the topographical map on there with the satellite overlay, but yeah, it's very swampy in certain areas and then very rocky. So really the only way easily to get to any of those lots would be to come via the south and up. The area between Block A and the back lot is really, really low.
So, but Block A is township property, correct?
That's right.
Yeah. So conceivably, we could down the road that we could actually sell that lot and make some money on that property there if we wanted to.
Yeah, and I think in that case, the easiest way to put in an access route would be to do it through the Oak Lane from the south, crossing the unopened road allowance to Block A.
Okay, so that makes sense. So you'd still be able to access it. So we'd have to, to have a building envelope there, you'd probably have to attach the right of way to that Block A to make it that one parcel. Then I would guess.
Yeah, definitely something.
Block up, yeah. I'd have no problem with the road allowance going to the applicant's request there.
Okay, we do have to have a public meeting still, right?
That's correct, yeah.
Yeah, good, yeah.
Any other questions or comments on this one? Hearing none, is there anyone voting no? Motion's carried. Okay. Committee reports. I have a motion moved by Cindy and seconded by Brent that council received for information CPAC's minutes from their meeting December the 16th, 2019. Any discussion?
Madam Mayor, Victor here.
Yes, go ahead, Victor.
In the quarterly stats section, it seems as if 2 positions are not going to be filled. People are leaving or retiring. Does this mean that there are fewer officers on duty at any one time? And if this is the case, is this reflected in our OPP payments?
Kathy, can you answer that one, or Michael?
I don't know if Michael's still on there or not, but anyway, I'm not sure in regards to the pricing for sure, the OPP, but I know when we were at the meeting, Sharon mentioned that about a couple of folks that were retiring, but I don't think she really said that they were not going to be replaced. I think they would still will get other officers coming in, and sometimes they move from detachment to detachment. So she didn't really, I don't remember her specifically saying they would not be filled. We can certainly confirm that.
Well, in the report, in the quarterly stats, second bullet from the bottom, one officer, Peter Robb, has been transferred out. His position is not being filled.
Oh, Okay, no, I
Three-
didn't catch that one.
3 are retiring, 2 done December 1st, the 3rd left in October. 2 of the 3 are being filled, which means that 1 position is not being filled. So that, to me, the report says 2 positions are not being filled.
Okay. Now, Michael may be able to ask, and I don't know if they'll reduce our fee or not. Hey, Michael?
So when I open my computer so you guys can see me, I lose all ability to do anything else. And looking at the OPP building, but I recall that it did say the number of officers that were in there, and I can certainly confirm with Sharon that that's reflected.
I think that needs to be done because I think this happens many times to us and we don't even know it's happening, where there will be officers off that slowly don't get replaced and we're functioning without them. And then they just become separate or subtracted from the total complement. So I think it's a good point. We need to question it.
Can I just add one further piece of information? Now, these were the minutes from our December meeting. We did have a meeting in just earlier this month, and which is what I think Kathy was remembering, because I'm just looking at my notes, and she did talk about staffing changes at the June meeting. She confirmed about the 3 retirements. They welcomed a couple of new members. They've had to hold a 5% vacancy rate due to budget constraints, but 2 vacancies can now be filled with 1 person, was what I had written down in my notes. And then my other note was that Buff was retiring June 23rd.
Yeah, and that was Buzz that was
All right.
Buzz
Buck,
retiring.
So it does sound like we're still going to be short 1 position in our
Just 1
detachment.
person. Correct. And you're right, Cindy, that's what I was speaking about.
Madam Mayor?
Yes, go ahead, Bill.
And also down under the new legislation, it means that municipalities will no longer have CPACs or police service boards. How is that going to impact our ability to communicate any of the needs and wishes of the community at large? And I don't know who to direct that question to.
Well, I can sort of speak a bit to it, and so can probably Cindy. Both of us can. In regards to that, that is not finalized yet. The government is talking about getting rid of CPACs. What you would have is a police services board. Now, I know the Frontenacs were talking because the only one in the Frontenacs that have a police services board is South Frontenac. So whether we end up collaborating and maybe have representative from our municipality on that police services board, that is yet to be determined. So it's not been finalized yet, Bill.
Okay, because
Can I add to that as well? There was an information report. Michael and I went to an information session in February. We brought a report back to council on that in, I think it was the 2nd meeting in February. So that will provide some of the background information. They're still in the consultation stage, and as far as I know, they're still taking comments and concerns before they finalize the regulations on that. But essentially, it's one board per detachment. So it would be all of the police service boards and CPACs of the detachment joined together into one.
the background on that, Madam Mayor, was the fact when policing were downloaded, the South Frontenac decided to go with a police services board. Central and North Frontenac voted to go to a status quo, which meant that we had access to all of the provincial services without having to pay for them. So that would be the difference. Thank you.
Okay, any other questions or comments? Okay, all those in favor.
We'll keep council informed as to what's moving forward on this.
Okay. Is anyone voting no to the motion? Motion's carried. Okay. So communications. I have a motion moved by Tom and seconded by Sherry that council received for information the following correspondence, and it's 1 to 10 in your package. Any questions or comments from anyone?
Your Worship, I'd just like to make a comment with regards to the correspondence there from, I'll get it back up on here, from the community living, Dean Walsh's community living connections. I would hope everyone would get a chance to read that, and I'd like to congratulate him and his staff and volunteers for the excellent job they're doing in our community. This is well worthwhile reading, and they do a great job for all the folks here that need some help. Anyway, I just wanted to mention that, so I hope you take the time and read it.
Excellent. Okay. Any other comments? If not, is there anyone voting no? Motion's carried. Public meetings, there are none. Bylaws. We have a motion moved by Bill and seconded by Elwin that bylaw 2020-32, being a bylaw identified as the burn bylaw, be read a first, second, and third time, and finally passed this 23rd day of June 2020. And those minor adjustments we talked about would be in there. Okay, any discussion? Anyone voting no? Motion's carried. Okay, is there any notice of motions?
None.
Is there any giving of notices of motion?
No.
Any new or other business?
I can just mention about other business, just to remind council that we have only one meeting in July and one in August. So all the departments will be reporting to both meetings. So they would be, of course, right now we'll still be going virtual unless there's more information that we can, require our 6-foot distancing to have it back in the hall. So, but we might as well continue with virtual at this point.
Okay.
Madam Mayor, if I may comment, South Frontenac is now conducting their meetings in person. So it might be something we could look into.
They are, and whoever doesn't feel comfortable calls in. So it's a combo. I think probably the state of emergency will continue into July by the look of it. But I think we definitely have to start looking at our community hall as to how we can set it up for our in-person meetings. Okay.
Maybe we could start with, I'm sorry, maybe we could do as Bill suggested, but since Frontenac's doing it, those that would like to come in personally could come in and the rest could call in, but maybe we could start at a smaller scale in for our July meeting.
Well, I don't know that we'd want to start it that quickly, maybe August. The problem with the community hall is to clean it after we've been there.
Okay, so you're right.
And it's a big area to clean. And once you're there, how do you keep the public safe as well?
Right.
We would only allow to be bringing in one of the public. There's a certain, depending on how many of council are present. So, I mean, for council, it's conducting business, and I think we're okay in regards to, having more than the 10, but it's getting our distancing, and then certainly how many of the public. I think in South Frontenac's case, the last I remember in the CAO's meeting is they weren't allowing any public into their meeting. They were only doing.
That's right. Yeah.
I think they were allowing one at a time.
No, I don't think there was any public let in.
That's correct. The last I remember, they said no, there was no public.
Okay, I stand corrected, but I thought that's what Ron said the other day. There were one at a time. Anyway, I'm prepared to go in whatever direction's necessary.
Okay. All right. So there's nothing for closed session. So we have an adjournment motion moved by Victor and seconded by Nikki that bylaw 2020-33 being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of the regular council meeting held June 23rd, 2020 be read a first, second, and third time and passed this 23rd day of June 2020, and further that this meeting be adjourned until July the 14th, 2020, said meeting location or format to be held at the call of the chair. Anybody voting no? Motion's carried.
I just want to announce before we leave, I'm getting my hair cut.
No.
Friday.
That's because you have an anniversary coming up.
I do. Sharon and I are celebrating our 50th wedding anniversary on Saturday. We were planning a party, but that's on hold till at least 51. So.
Well, you're
Congratulations.
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 You better cook.
Well, the least you can do is clean yourself up.
And also, and you're talking about that because Jamie, that's what he's canceled the other meeting. He forgot about tomorrow because it's his 25th wedding anniversary tomorrow. So.
My goodness. Yes. Okay, folks, good meeting.
All the best.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Good night, everyone.
Here, everybody.
Bye.
Everybody.